I feel like effects units are one of the hardest types of DJ product to review. Firstly, there aren't that many others to compare with, and secondly, beyond the basics like sound and build quality, they're really about vibes, whether you as a DJ connect with the philosophy behind the design. What kind of effects does it have? Vibes. How do you interact with those effects? Vibes. Even the connectivity, the kinds of mixers it works with, is vibes based to some degree, because it's just not possible for any one unit to function perfectly with everything. So with that in mind, let's talk about the new RMX-IGNITE from AlphaTheta, which has a vibe all of its own. The CDJ is most often credited as the reason for the dominance of Pioneer DJ and now AlphaTheta in the DJ Tech world. But I'd argue that their mastery of effects had almost as large a role to play in that. My first experience of their products was a DJM 500 installed at a club I played at in the late 90s, and the thing which really made that memorable was the effects, in particular the flanger, which every DJ at the time overused. The effects suite on their 4-channel club mixers has grown and evolved over the years through the 800 to the A9 of today, but has always retained an element of consistency and familiarity. They've pushed the limits of effects on battle mixers too. The way I DJ today is influenced to a large extent by Jazzy Jeff's use of echo transitions on the DJM 909 back in the early 2000s. And the main reason that I've favoured the S9 and S11 over, say, Rain mixers in recent years is that the effects are superior on the DJMs, although Rain have finally caught up on other hardware. Then we have their separate effects units. The line began with the EFX 500 and I still have mine today. It's really easy to use and, unlike the company's mixers of the time, allowed you to affect only specific frequencies. The sound quality is pretty terrible though. A bit later, the EFX 1000 was released. Again, I have one, although I got that more recently. It sounds a lot better, has some cool extra effects, and could be directly linked to the DJM 1000 mixer, which didn't have any onboard effects of its own. Both the 500 and 1000 had two distinct sets of effects, beat effects on the left and jog effects on the right, controlled by a large wheel. Then in 2012 along came the RMX-1000, which has remained on the market until now. Again, it had two sets of effects, isolate effects, which are controlled by 3 frequency pots, and the scene effects, which were all about instant gratification with one pot. Perhaps most importantly, it also featured a set of 4 drum sounds, which could be tapped or rolled. If you've watched any sets from big festivals over the years, you've heard that snare or clap roll used countless times. For the sake of completion, I will also mention the RMX 500, but only as a footnote, as it didn't stick around all that long. I did own an RMX 1000 for a while, but despite being a massive gear hoarder, I did get rid of it. Why? Well, let's talk about the one issue which all Pioneer DJ effects units, and now the IGNITE, have. Many of the company's mixers since the 500 have had send and return loops on them, but they have traditionally been part of the beat effects, which means they are designed to work as inserts going between the source and the output. This works well enough when a mixer has an insert style circuit, but when attached to a more traditional aux send and return loop, as found on mixers like Zones, the original signal is not replaced like with an insert, but supplemented, and unless the effects unit has the ability to remove the original dry signal from its output, you get a doubling up of that dry signal and the sound phases. On the older EFX units, you can work around this by leaving, say, the echo engaged and turning the dry-wet control fully wet. The dry signal is then removed. But this is still a compromise, as you can't really use the jog effects properly. Those are insert effects designed to process, not supplement, the original signal. With the RMX 1000 there is no wet-dry control for any of the effects, so basically on nearly all the non-Pioneer mixers I use, it couldn't be made to sound good. That phasing was always present. And on the subject of sound, the RMX 1000 sounds pretty dreadful, with 2012 era digital quality, so I would never want to put the RMX 1000 in between, say, a CDJ and a mixer, or on a master insert, where it would work, as it would degrade the sound pretty badly. So we come to the new RMX-IGNITE, the long-awaited replacement for the 1000. Firstly, and I've made peace with this, it still only really works as an insert. There's no wet-dry control, and so you can't stick it on a regular effects loop. I'd still prefer to have the option, but I get it, it's really meant for the company's own mixers, and to work perfectly with those, and it does. The other thing is that a lot of other manufacturers have now started adding master inserts to their mixers, not just effects loops. So you can add the Ignite to other mixers that way. You won't get per channel effects, but it will work as intended. All of that would be for naught though if the Ignite didn't have great sound quality, but thankfully it does. Like, really good. 2026 AlphaTheta digital good. When you're using the analog connections, you even have the ability to choose the voicing of the sound, going between neutral, warm, which sounds like the V10, and cool, which sounds more like the A9. I've attached the Ignite to a whole bunch of different gear, and I can say that, unlike with the 1000, I'd have no qualms about inserting it into the signal chain of pretty much anything. Real vinyl purists might balk at the idea of feeding their analog sound through a digital device like this, but I think for most people, the sound will be perfectly good enough. Let's talk about some other fundamentals. The shell is basically all plastic, but that's never been an issue with their older effects units. My EFX 500 is over 20 years old and still kicking. The pots and buttons all feel good in use too. Overall, I'm happy with the build, and I'm sure the Ignite will prove to be very durable. Something I'm less enamoured with is the pricing. You might want to sit down, as the Ignite is going to have a street price of around €1,200. Looking at the market for, say, guitar multi-effects pedals, this kind of pricing is not without precedent, but it's still a big number. As you'll see, the Ignite is at its best when it's connected to one of the company's flagship mixers and some CDJs, and if you've already spent a minimum of $9,000 on your rig, what's another $1,200 between friends? But still, that pricing will obviously put it out of reach for the average DJ. You'll see a lot more of these on festival stages than you will in home setups, that's for sure. Coming on to connectivity, this is generally a big step up from the 1000. From right to left, we have the power input. The Ignite comes with one of AlphaTheta's USB-C power bricks, which I like, and that also means you can use any sufficiently powerful USB charger with it. Super convenient. Then there's another USB-C for connecting to the multi-I/O port on the DJM A9 or V10 mixers. I'll show you that in the demo. And there's also a USB-A port for loading your own sample banks to the device directly. Again, we'll come back to that. The next port is an absolute winner, an Ethernet port for Pro DJ Link. This serves two main functions. You can load samples over Link, that'll be in the demo, and it also allows the Ignite to sync its BPM with the master deck on the Link network. It's not needed with the USB connection in place, but with other mixers, this is killer. The company's audio BPM detection has always been the best in the game, but it's not flawless, and this means if you're using CDJs with, say, a Zone 92, you can still get perfectly BPM synced effects and sample playback on the Ignite. Then we come to the more traditional analog connections, two pairs of stereo jacks for input and output. These are accompanied by a switch to tell the unit your connection type, CDJ, send return and master. All that switch does is change the levels sent and received by the Ignite. There are no actual level controls, unlike the EFX and RMX units. This is okay, but I think I'd still prefer to have actual level pots on the top panel for more outlier kinds of situations. My main issue with the analog jacks though is that they are only unbalanced. I seem to have been unable to make AlphaTheta understand why this annoys me, so I'll try again here. As I said, the Ignite works really only as an insert, and it has great sound quality. So I'd love, for example, to go out of the master output on my DJM S11, through the Ignite and into a venue's sound system. I'm confident it would have no negative impact on the sound and it would work well, but I can't do that without balanced connections. I'd have to carry a DI box around as well. I just think that making those jacks balanced would open up the Ignite to a much larger cohort of DJs who use mixers or controllers without inserts or effects loops, and it just seems like a missed opportunity. One last thing before the demo, let's talk about the accompanying software, the RMX-IGNITE Sample Manager. This app allows you to build up to 15 banks of 4 samples, with each bank being up to 15 seconds long in total. Each sample can be set as a one-shot or a loop, assigned a BPM and a gain value, and trimmed within the software. You can bring in your own samples, use the supplied ones, and the Ignite comes with a 3-month free trial of Loop Cloud, so you won't be short of stuff to use. Once you've built your banks, you can export them to a USB drive. This could be a dedicated drive which you'll stick in the USB-A port on the back of the Ignite, or, and this is the really clever bit, you can export them to a drive you already use with CDJs, with your record box music on there, and load your banks to the Ignite over Pro DJ Link. So with just one USB drive, and there's nothing to stop you using more than one, you can have all of your tracks and 60 samples spread across 15 banks ready to load. Super dope. All right, demo time with the Ignite. Let's go through some basics here first of all. I have a CJ3000X, that is player number 3. It's on channel 3 on the A9, and they are Pro DJ linked together. So you can see when I drop the fader, the on-air display on the jog wheel goes on and off as I move the fader up and down, and the beat effects are tracking the BPM from that player instantly. So all of my effects will be synchronized with the BPM from the deck. Then we look at the Ignite itself. All right, now I will show you, if you're not using what I'm about to show you, if you're just plugging this in and you're using, let's say you're using a Zone 92 or a 96 or something, or a rotary, but you've still got all your players linked up, we can take our Pro DJ Link cable and we can plug that into the back of the Ignite, and it will also become a part of that Pro DJ Link network, and it will pick up the BPM from the master player. So again, you can see it's instantly reacting to what I'm doing with the pitch slider. So this is changing and this is changing. All right, but we're going to take that out for a minute. That does something else cool as well that I'll show you later, but let's take that out for a moment and let's get this thing connected up to the A9. So we've just got the USB in the back for power, and I've got another USB, in this case a USB-A connector, and I'm going to plug that into the multi-IO on top of the mixer. Let's do that now. And USB connected, mixer delay sync on, and you'll notice immediately we have signal going through this. So what's happening here? I'll turn it on so I don't forget to do it later. All right, this is assigned on the channel 3, and it's literally it's an insert now. So it's sending audio from the mixer into the Ignite and then back into the mixer again, just through that USB connection. No audio jacks required for that. It's so simple and straightforward, and that is really like the killer app of this device, I think, is that real tight integration with the A9 and with the V10. One USB cable, it's doing it all, right? It's there. Now, the other thing to note as well, we've got the instant BPM, so I'm changing the BPM on the player, the beat effects are changing, and also the Ignite is changing. Again, that's going over USB. Pro DJ Link, not currently connected. I am about to connect that back in again, but that's for another feature we're going to look at later. But we don't need it, as you can see. We don't need Pro DJ Link connected to this for it to sync up. Only, you know, if you're using it with a different kind of mixer that doesn't have this USB connection, then you'll need Pro DJ Link to get that BPM sync. So coming back to the unit itself, we have really 3 sections here. We have the sample section, we have the lever effects, and we have the isolate effects. You've got choices when it comes to your inputs. You can either affect the input, which will be the track itself. So if I just turn this on, so the echo, enable it on the input, or the sampler. So if I just hit let's put holder. So at this point now, it's just going to affect the sampler. So you can hear the track itself is unaffected, but I'm echoing the sample roll, right? So let's take a look at this sample player first of all. This is really kind of cool. It's a big step up from what we had before on the RMX-1000. You've just got so much more here, mainly in the ability to work with different banks and so on. So of course we have our sample trigger pads. Here's the default setup. Let's turn that effect off. So we've got ride, snare, clap, open hat. That's your 909 kit. And then we can create a pattern, so we can overdub. So we can just tap one in. And it seems to kind of quantize it to maybe like a quarter beat or something. It's not too strict, but it does quantize a little bit. So if you're off, it will lock it in slightly for you. And then we can add more in there as well, because I'm overdubbing. You can hear it definitely quantized my sloppy playing then. So I can now turn that off. We can hold if we want to do these rolls here, but we can also mute. So I can mute a certain slot if I want to by holding the mute button. Let's just turn it off, it's getting a bit hectic. The other way you can work is you can choose your sample and then you can just roll it. And then you can overdub that as well if you want. And you can kind of chop up the pattern that way. You can just kind of build it up as you want, and you can add in then turn off the overdub. You can use the hold mode as well. So if I just push hold, then it will just lock that in there. We then have color effects as well. So let's turn the hold off. Right, we have color effects for these. So let's get, let's just run a little snare pattern, right? So let's do a, right, it says a, let's go into the color effects. We've got the sampler volume there as well for your samples, right? So we've got echo, like a low pass or a high pass echo. We have space. And remember, we can add the other effects onto this as well if we want. So we can use the color effects and combine them with all of these. So right now we're just using the color effects. We've got a filter, obviously high and low pass. Pitch up and down. We've got decay time, so we can really shorten it. And then we've got swing as well, so we can kind of get that pattern to just kind of swing a little bit on the beat, not quite locked to the groove, you know, it's just add a degree of swing to it, and you can see the amount of swing there. So that is your sampler color effects. But of course, one of the big problems with the RMX 1000 was everyone using the same drum sounds all the time, just repetitive over and over again. Well, those days are gone, because now we can go in, we can have favorite banks. We won't do that. We'll do a bank select factory. So we've got 808 drums. Let's load that one. So we've got 808 kick, snare, clap, and closed hat. We've got, these are all just the ones that are built into the Ignite. So 707 drums. And then I'll just show you as well, we've got 606, but this loop and play one is pretty interesting because it does contain a loop. So we've got a kick, snare, clap, and a loop. So it demonstrates that you can put loops in there too. So that's pretty sweet. Then we've also got a temporary bank. We can build a bank on the fly right here on the device. So we can create a new one. And so we just browse, we go to the factory, put the 909 clap on the first pad there. And then we can add, let's go back and put the 606 snare on the second pad, etc. And then we can just load that, and that is our bank. So we can do that totally on the fly. But if you've used the preparation software on your computer, you can export your own samples to a USB. Now, you can plug them via a USB straight into the back of this. That works fine. Absolutely it does. But even better, and this I think is the best feature on the Ignite. I think it's absolutely superb, right? User, link 3, USB 2. So it's player 3 on the link, and it's USB. This is why I plugged in this Pro DJ link cable, because this only works over the Pro DJ link. It won't go through the USB. Right, link 3, USB 2, which is where this USB is. That's my regular USB stick that I've got Rekordbox Music exported to, but I've also exported some samples to it. And it's reading that over Pro DJ Link. That's just super dope, right? So there we can see USB link 3. There's my little thing, and I can load that up. Right, and it'll take a couple of seconds to load. And these are not samples I would necessarily use in this day and age, but this is to give you an idea that you don't just have to have drum hits or, you know, little drum loops and stuff. You can have other kinds of content in there. If you're an open format DJ, you're playing off sticks and you want to play drops and stuff in your set, there's nothing to stop you doing something like an air horn, for example, or, you know, or drop. And you can roll those and you can overdub them and you can add the effects to them and all of that. And then you can add these effects to them. And my levels are a bit loud on that one. But yeah, so you can see you are not tied to one kind of content. You can put whatever you want. I'm going to go back to the standard 909. And again, we can affect these as much as we want. So that is your sample. player, basically. I wouldn't call it a sampler because it's not, you can't record stuff into it on the fly, but it is a sample player. And also I like the fact that this display changes, it shows you when you've got a color effect active on there. Just super dope, right? Really, really dope. So, and you can have that running independently of, so I could just, you know, turn off the effects, I could just affect the track underneath, and then this will be playing unaffected. Yeah, it's just a massive step up over what there was on the RMX 1000. It takes the principles of what was there and just expands it massively. And the fact you can load your own sample packs over the Pro DJ Link, absolutely a killer feature. Let's look at some effects now, right? So we've got the lever effects. These have the levers like on like an S11 mixer or something. You pull them towards you, they spring back. If you push them away, they lock, right? So let's get echo set up. Now we've got echo time for this one. There's only actually 3 different effects on here where this echo time has any impact at all. One of them being echo, of course. So, and each of these are for the different frequencies, so low, mid, and high. So let's go in there. You can change that time. And what is kind of cool is that you can just leave them where they are, and then you can turn the effect off and it still tails out. Because my kind of reaction on playing with this thing for a while is a lot of these effects do need 2 hands to get the best out of them. You know, you want to tweak multiple things at once. But actually, if you're trying to go one-handed, you can just leave those levers in place and just turn the effects on and off and get that kind of instant, instant gratification kind of feel. We have a sub-parameter knob for all of these. So echo, it's the mix ratio, so it's like a depth control. One thing I will point out is if you're on this multi-IO, the only way to get post-fader effects on it, so like right now, I'm assigned to channel 3. If I pull it down, the echo's gone as well. So if I want to get post-fader effects, I assign the channel and the actual IO to the crossfader. So I've got crossfader B here. Now I can do post-fader and post-crossfader if I want to. But I feel like most people using this are not working in that way. That's kind of a me thing. That's an open format thing, right? So that's your echo. It's a great echo. Choose your frequencies, off you go. Reverb, we've got mix ratio again, a new parameter. No way to change kind of the room size or the depth on this. It's just mix ratio. If you want to get a quick reverb on like a certain drum sound or something, that's there for you. Then we've got juggle, which is like it's like a 1 beat delay. Again, we've got mix ratio. Sounds best with like vocals and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of cool. I wish there was a way to change the beat division on it. You know, it is 1 beat, that's it. Sometimes I might want to do a half beat delay or a 2 beat delay, or I don't know. But that is, say, it's like a little 1 beat delay. Then we've got reverse, which also has a mix ratio control. And that is pretty cool. I like that one. Again, it's a fixed duration, no way to change the beat value on it. But it sounds great. And that's the thing with this thing. The sound quality of all these effects is yeah, superb. This is excellent sound. Then we've got solo, which weirdly is one of the other effects that does use the echo time. If you leave the parameter at 12, there's your depth there. It just kind of solos those frequencies. But if you turn up the parameter, kind of echoes it out as well. And you can change that as you go, which I really like, gets a bit twisty. So listen. You can get some really glitchy stuff with that. I like that one. And then we got stretch. And for that one, the parameter is the speed control. That's kind of cool as well. I do like that one. Then we move down to the isolate effects, and I'm going to point this out, right? I said this from the beginning when I saw this. They're isolate effects. There is no isolator effect. Isolator. There should be an isolator on this. I feel like if it was up to me, when there's no effect selected here, this would just be an isolator, because these pots are fantastic, right? They're really nice to work with. And some of these effects do have cut. So like the tape echo, for example, if I cut them all down, it takes all the frequencies out, but there's no effect where I can boost the frequency by turning it the other way. So I think that's a missed opportunity. Either one of these should have been isolator, or you should just, when none is selected, it should be an isolator, because I would so want one of these as an isolator, but there you go. We've got tape echo. I love a good tape echo, and this is a good tape echo, right? So take out the bass. It's just great. That is very much my bag. And then we've got another reverb. Now, why have we got another reverb? Well, this one has a different control. It has a decay control. And of course, you can take out frequencies and then add. And again, you can kind of preset these knobs and just turn it on and off. And I like that one. I do like that one a lot. And again, if you can cut the frequency. So it is a different way of working. It is odd that there's two reverbs on here, but they do work kind of very differently. Then we've got drive, which is like a distortion effect, and that has the character knob here. I'm not a user of any kind of distortion effects ever. You can change the character there. It's just not one for me, but it is very high quality. If you're into distortion stuff, that's great. Lots of ways to work with it. Filter is kind of interesting. You've got resonance control. This one really feels like a two-hand effect to me, because you want to just work both, you know, 2 or 3 of these knobs at once. And that's where you get the best, wildest sounds out of it. Change that resonance. That is quite naughty and it's quite fun. It's very different from any other kind of filter setup. Then we've got Ducker. Now, I'll be honest, Ducker is like the one real disappointment on this whole thing for me, because you've got the curve adjustment there, but it's only ever one beat. And I feel like, you know, if I don't use transform effects on mixers and stuff, but like if you do, one of the beauties of a transform effect is changing the beat value and making it shorter and longer as you go through. And this is just one beat always. I don't know. I've yet to find a real, you know, a use for that in my performances. Combine it with the lever effects and like, there's definitely ways to work with it. It's just I would have liked them to have. I'd like the echo time to work for a lot more of these. Basically, I'd like it to work for the joggle. I'd like that to be just like a beat division knob instead of just echo time. But you know, it is what it is. Then the same applies for the rhythm here. Kind of does a little rhythmic pattern. So let's turn it off. Turn it on. Change the duration. That's pretty fun. And then we have something which is kind of interesting. It comes again from the RMX 1000, which is the release echo. So let's say I've got all this going on. I've got maybe the solo with the effect. No, let's do stretch. Everything's going on, and I've got this rolling as well. And it's all getting a bit out of hand, and I just want to come out of this in a nice, smooth way. Hit the release echo, gives you an echo, tails out, and then goes back to the dry signal again. Everything is reset. So all these effects are turned off. This is turned off. We can do it with the dry setting, and we can go mute. So, and then it will come back in. So you've got two options there. My one criticism of this, when it's set up through the USB like this, it sounds nice and clean. When I've got the mix, when I have the Ignite set up on like send and return loops or inserts on other mixers, I do think the release is a little bit loud. It like boosts the level a little bit too much. You can hear it doing it there a little bit, but it seems to be more prominent on the analog setup. But as you can see, just loads of ways of working with this. That very powerful, ability to load your own samples, your own kits across Pro DJ Link. I didn't really talk about the BPM stuff here. We've got obviously a tap BPM, and we can also dial in using the knob there, the encoder. Go back to the sync mode. We've got the auto BPM, which is their auto BPM detection. Generally the best in the game. Not always perfect, but pretty good, certainly compared to everyone else. And then we have the phase control here, which is something to bear in mind actually. Like if your grids are off, or if you're playing vinyl, or you don't use grids at all, or whatever else, and you find, for example, like your sample roll is slightly off the groove, you can use this phase to nudge it back and forth, like pitch bend almost. And then there's a reset button in the middle. So you can almost like manually mix this stuff just to kind of get it sat right on the beat where you want it to be. So that is another kind of utility feature that's very useful. So let's turn that on there, and let's get some space on here. And yeah, not dramatically different from how things work on AlphaTheta and Pioneer DJ FX setups normally, but some exciting new stuff in there which we've really not seen before. So there you go, my thoughts on the RMX-IGNITE from AlphaTheta. This is a product which is really designed to sit in one place, attached to a DJM A9 or V10 via USB, and then linked to a load of CDJs. All other use cases are clearly a secondary concern, although the unit still performs well in those situations too. And I'm absolutely not going to fault it for that. It's integrated into the company's flagship club and festival setups in a way that the RMX 1000 never could quite be. There's no getting away from the fact that the pricing is pretty wild. For the same kind of cost, you could assemble a bunch of other effects units and a sampler, but then you wouldn't have the same integration with the rekordbox ecosystem or the ease of connectivity. So in the end, the Ignite does what it sets out to do. It absolutely isn't the effects unit for me, but I knew that from the moment I saw it. And again, I can't fault it for not being designed to my own personal specifications. You'll see it perched behind the mixer at pretty much every big club and festival event this summer, and rightly so, as it's a massive upgrade from the RMX 1000 on every level. Vibe check, passed. In the comments, let me know your thoughts on the RMX-IGNITE. Are you vibing with it? And if not, what are you looking for from an effects unit? And in the age of software effects, and with so many mixers today having effects built in, are external effects units even needed? As always, sound off down below. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Beatsource Tech. If you liked it, be sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And hey, if you haven't already, you can try Beatsource for free and join DJcity for just $10. All the links are down in the description. I'll see you next time.